The first panel invites us to imagine what it would be like if, suddenly, the company we worked for went bankrupt. In the second panel, we are presented with a range of negative emotions, hinting at possible reactions to such an event. The confirmation comes in the third panel. The response encompasses all the bad feelings mentioned. The scene then takes us to a chaotic office, where a man, surrounded by papers, desperately tries to contact someone by phone. The character's anguish grows with each failed attempt, leading him to a state of despair and emotional breakdown. The narrative then transports us to the evening, following a man walking down the street, absorbed in his disheartening thoughts about unemployment and financial difficulties. With each step, his worry intensifies, culminating in an intrigued question as he encounters the bright lights of a convenience store. Intrigued by the strong light, the man observes the convenience store and wonders how long it has been there. He notices a poster on the door, advertising part-time jobs. Curious, he approaches to read the offer more closely, discovering that the store is hiring and welcomes all genders and ages. At the sound of the bell, he enters and expresses his interest in the part-time job, mentioning the ad on the door. The attendant, surprised, stares at him. The man, not understanding the attendant's reaction, tries to confirm if the job is still available. To his surprise, the attendant reveals that she is the store manager. Shocked by the manager's youth, the man expresses his surprise. The manager, in a playful tone, invites him to come in and sit down. While waiting, the man is asked about his drink preference. He opts for an Americano and then provides his personal information to the manager, including his name, age, and address, also mentioning his previous experience in convenience stores. Excited, the manager celebrates the candidate's experience, stating it is exactly what she was looking for. However, the man reveals he is older and asks permission to address the young manager informally. She agrees and starts explaining the working conditions. A basic one-year contract with night shifts from 10 p.m. to 10 a.m. every day. The man notes that his sleep cycle will need adjusting. The manager then lists the benefits. A salary of $20,001 per hour and, before she can finish, the man eagerly accepts the offer. Surprised by his quick decision, the manager suggests he think it over a bit more, but the man is determined to start working that very day. The manager, still surprised, asks him to wait to sign the contract. The man signs the document, and the manager, enthusiastic, announces the start of training for the new employee. After 3 hours of training, the manager bids farewell, instructing the new employee to be attentive to the arrival of suppliers in the morning. The man asks if deliveries can happen so early, and the manager explains that usually not, but in urgent cases, yes. She reassures him, stating she will handle the organization of deliveries. Finally, the manager asks the new employee to deal appropriately with suspicious customers. The man, confident, claims to have experience with such customers. Relieved, the manager says goodbye and wishes him good luck on his first shift. The man, now wearing the store uniform, watches the manager as she walks away. Relieved with the new opportunity, the man celebrates the job that will allow him to pay rent and have a better life. He calculates his earnings, excited about the possibility of earning, in a year, the equivalent of a veteran employee's salary at a large corporation. Determined to do his best, he starts his first shift at the store. A customer enters the store and asks for the location of the toothbrushes. The man, still adjusting to his new routine, points to the aisle. The customer, visibly impatient, demands a more precise answer. The man, surprised by the customer's exaggerated reaction, notices that the customer has a dog's head. Frightened, he asks if there is any filming going on, but the customer, even more irritated, curses at him, ordering him to tell where the toothbrushes are. The man, still in shock at the customer's appearance, indicates the exact location of the product. The customer, still with the same peculiar appearance, approaches the counter with a product in hand and asks for the price. The man, now calmer, informs the value and bids the customer farewell. After the dog-headed customer leaves, the man realizes he forgot to give the change. The customer, irritated, asks if the man is trying to annoy him. Frightened, the man tells him to take the change or do whatever he wants with it. The customer leaves the store, and the man wonders about the identity of that being, who didn't seem suspicious but rather had a very realistic disguise. Intrigued by the situation, he wonders how makeup could be so convincing. As the man ponders, a new customer enters the store. Frightened by the appearance of the new customer, a short green being, the man tries to stay calm. The customer approaches the counter and hands him a coin, asking to exchange it for a $10,001 note. Confused and scared, the man observes the customer. Not understanding what was happening, he complies with the customer's request. While the man tries to process the bizarre sequence of events, the customer observes him impatiently, urging him to speed up the coin exchange. Amid the confusion, he picks up the phone and, still dazed, calls someone. On the other end of the line, we hear the voice of the manager. The chapter ends with the revelation that a goblin entered the store. In disbelief, the man had served a goblin. It wasn't a dream. He had exchanged a number of coins for money for about 20 minutes. As the man questions what had happened, the manager calls the store and asks if the customers have left. Confused and seeking explanations, he recounts the strange encounters with the dog man and the goblin who exchanged coins for notes. The manager, trying to reassure him, explains that the store is located near a teleportation area, which justifies the presence of magical beings. The man, even more confused, questions the need for teleportation for a convenience store. The manager explains that teleportation facilitates access for customers from other dimensions and helps with stock management. Incredulous, the man asks if she is a manager or a mage, and the manager, in a mysterious tone, confirms her true nature. The manager, still in a mysterious tone, reveals to the man that she is a mage and that the store is enchanted with teleportation magic. She explains that the store moves to different places, attracting magical customers. The man, incredulous, questions if she was serious about the teleportation from the beginning. The manager apologizes for not telling him before and promises to explain everything the next day. Meanwhile, going outside the store, he encounters various magical creatures, including a Batman, a Minotaur, a skeleton, an orc, and even an angel. The man, still stunned by the manager's revelations, tries to assimilate the situation. Entering the store once again, the man questions his boss, recalling the previous conversation about coming from another world. The manager confirms what she had said, leaving the man even more perplexed. The manager, in her apartment, reaffirms to the man that he really came from another world, a place without magic or different species. Shocked by the revelation, the manager questions how to deal with the situation. Back at the store, the man continues his journey in this magical world. A peculiar customer, with horns and long, light hair, enters the store. Scared by the customer's appearance and the sound of her entrance, the man wonders who she is. The customer, with a piercing look, observes him. The manager questions if he is okay, and if he remembers the conversation about coming from different worlds. The man confirms, and the manager concludes that he crossed into her world. Scared, the man admits he has never experienced anything like this before. Back at the store, the man reflects on the manager's bombshell revelation and thinks about how to deal with the different species that frequent the place. Meanwhile, the customer with horns and bat wings faints on the floor, laughing uncontrollably. The man, on the phone with the manager, describes the customer's behavior, comparing her to a ghost because of the laughter. The manager explains that it is a succubus, a non-dangerous creature, and instructs him to use the curse detector that is under the counter. The man locates the detector, a colorful wand shaped like a star, and questions if that toy is really the detector. The manager confirms and explains that the detector looks like that to cheer up customers who are usually depressed when they need to be tested. She explains that to use the detector, he just needs to bring it close to the customer's skin and press the button. Above the counter, the succubus was staring at the man with a frightening look. Scared, the man cries out for help to the manager, questioning the information that succubi were not dangerous. The tip of the wand extends, hitting the customer. The woman is thrown back, making her fall unconscious. The wand shrinks, and the man watches, astonished, as the sphere at the tip returns to normal, creating a dazzling magical effect. Gradually, the light diminishes, and the man gets up, still holding the wand. The succubus lies unconscious on the floor, and the man cautiously walks towards her. Talking to his boss once again, he ends up believing he has killed a customer. The manager asks if the customer was hit by the curse detector, and he confirms that she was, with considerable force. The manager explains that it was supposed to be like that and asks about the test result. The man responds that the detector is glowing violet. The manager then instructs him to get the homesickness remedy in the corner of the chewing gum section. The man questions if that is the remedy for that ailment, and the manager confirms, asking him to give the customer 2 pills. He wonders if the customer is suffering from homesickness, and the manager explains that it is something a little different but should take effect immediately. The customer wakes up and calls for the man. He steps back to observe the situation from afar and asks if she is feeling better. The customer gets up, and he asks her to sit down again. The man observes the customer, noting that she seems much better now. He asks if she is okay, and the customer, appearing to be fine, soon shows signs of nausea, falling ill afterward, improving soon after. The man, irritated, asks if she's finished and if he can leave. The customer, with a smile, says it was spicy. The man, still surprised by the situation, watches the customer lie down again and start to sleep. At that moment, a new customer enters the store, a boy with white hair and dark clothing. He addresses the man, calling him boss, and alerts him about what happened with the previous customer. The man, confused, asks what's going on. The boy greets him and asks if he's looking for something. The boy then asks if the store has a 17-degree blood package. The manager, on the phone, realizes the customer hasn't taken the medicine yet. The man explains he'll give the medicine once the current customer leaves. The manager reassures him, asking him to wait, and explains they don't deal with blood packages, suggesting he recommend another store to the customer. The manager then explains they also check identification for blood package purchases and asks if the customer is a vampire. The man, hesitant, answers, probably yes. The manager explains vampires have long lives, so they renew their IDs periodically. She adds that sometimes people present documents with an X mark, indicating they're expired, and usually these people are adults. The manager reassures the man, saying the store has a magical alarm system in case something happens, and he doesn't need to worry about inspection. The man, relieved, understands it's just a precaution. He informs the customer that the store only has blood packages below 15 degrees, and he needs to go to another store. The customer then decides to take an envelope. The man asks if he needs a bag, and he confirms. Then the customer asks for a pack of cigarettes. The man asks which type, and the customer points to a specific one. The man asks again which one it is, and the customer, impatient, repeats the location of the desired cigarette, asking for that one. The man, confused by the insistence, hands over the cigarette. While the customer looks at the products in the store, the man wonders if he's underage. He asks for the customer's ID, who replies he's renewing his documents and only has expired ones. The man then asks him to show any document he has. The man questions if he can't just sell the products to the customer without checking the ID. The customer arrogantly replies he's from the army and that checking is a mandatory procedure. The man, annoyed, asks for the ID. The customer hands it over, rushing him, as his friends are waiting outside. The man, examining the ID, notices the resemblance to documents from his world. He realizes the document is expired, but decides to overlook it, thinking it's because of the customer's youthful appearance. As he approaches the customer to return the ID, the wand in his hand starts to glow and emit a rainbow. The man questions what's happening, while the customer watches the scene, equally confused. A strong light emanates from the card, frightening the customer. The man, not understanding what's going on, asks what's happening. The customer yells, asking why the light is chasing him. The man, in panic, tries to explain, but the light continues to chase the customer through the store. The customer, running desperately, asks what the man did. The man apologizes, explaining the ID belongs to the customer, inadvertently revealing the vampire's true identity. Frightened by the chasing light, the customer asks the man to put it somewhere else. The man, not knowing how to control the wand, throws it on the ground, but the light continues to chase the customer, who becomes even more desperate. The light reaches the customer, who falls to the ground, unconscious. A man in a black cloak enters the store and observes the scene, while the man, still holding the customer's ID, wonders about what happened. The man in the cloak approaches and takes the ID, revealing a cat-headed man. The man, surprised, stares at the vampire. He explains the ID sticker came off and asks if the ID is correct. The customer, confused, tries to explain he didn't do anything wrong. The man, still holding his phone, interrupts him, questioning the validity of the document. The man, irritated, asks if the manager heard everything, and the man confirms, threatening to call the police. The customer runs out of the store with his identity. The man, still inside the store, continues his call with the manager, who asks him to explain the situation. He tells her he suspected the customer and found out he was underage. The manager is surprised, saying it would have been a big problem if he had sold the products. She then asks how he didn't hear the store alarm. The man explains the customer put a magic sticker on the ID to deactivate the alarm. The manager, surprised, wonders about the use of magic in the sticker. The manager explains the customer forged the ID by sticking his own photo on it, and when removing the sticker, some of the magic transferred to the document. The man, intrigued, asks if she could see that with the naked eye, and she confirms, saying she's seen that sort of thing before. The manager, concerned, explains the security of IDs in their world is very strict. making forgery and tampering extremely difficult, which demonstrates the skill of forgers in that world. She adds that these forgers are so skilled magic of illusion that is hard to recognize with the naked eye. The man questions if it's really so difficult to recognize them. The manager explains that although the store's alarm magic tends to be faulty, if it didn't go off, it's usually not a problem. Thoughtfully, the man wonders how he managed to identify the forgery. The manager asks if that vampire was really so formidable, and he denies it, saying the forger seemed nervous. Intrigued by the situation, the man questions what's going on. The manager then suggests they terminate the work contract. Shocked by the proposal, the man is left bewildered. The man, taken aback by the manager's proposal, asks if he made a mistake. The manager denies it, stating he's doing very well, but explains that being from another world, she was concerned the situation might be too scary and difficult for him. The man confidently responds that he's okay and doesn't find the job frightening or difficult. He states he wants to continue working at the store, and the surprised manager questions if he's sure. The man thinks about his financial situation and concludes he needs to keep working there, otherwise he'll go hungry. He pleads with the manager to let him continue working, and she agrees, asking him not to do anything reckless. The man promises to behave. The manager, concerned about the man's reaction, asks if everything is all right and if he wants her to stay on the line. He replies yes, as he's a bit anxious. The manager is relieved, as she was thinking the same. She then asks if he's given the medicine to the succubus client yet. The man replies he will do it right now. He opens the medicine box, approaching the unconscious client. Nervously, he administers the medicine into her mouth. He steps back, observing the client, waiting for any reaction. The client remains unconscious, and he informs the manager that he gave the medicine but she hasn't reacted. The manager reassures him, saying she should wake up soon, but warns him to be careful as she might feel nauseous. The man confirms he understands. The client wakes up and lets out a laugh. The manager asks the man if he thinks she seems dizzy or confused, and he replies that he didn't notice anything like that. Thoughtfully, the manager asks if it's really so, and he confirms. The manager then suggests he check for curses using the detector again. The man picks up the curse detector, but it doesn't turn on, just emits a sound. Worried, he asks the manager if the client is in bad condition. The manager replies it's not that, but that she seems to be in a special state, something peculiar. The man wonders what's going on as the store starts shaking violently. He's startled by the noise and vibration, wondering what's happening. The tremor intensifies, and the man thinks it's raining meteorites. Terrified, he runs out of the store. Outside, he's confronted with a surreal scene. The street is covered with a huge amount of packages. Perplexed, the man wonders where all those packages came from. Suddenly, a voice announces the arrival of the delivery. A white feather falls from the sky, followed by a woman with blue hair riding a Pegasus. She introduces herself as the person the manager mentioned and greets the man. Surprised, he greets her back and asks her to wait a moment. On the phone with the manager, he informs her about the delivery's arrival, describing the woman riding a Pegasus. Confused, the manager asks if it's the logistics she mentioned before leaving. She then remembers telling Yunha she could make the delivery that day. The man asks who Yunha is, and she replies it's her name, Co Yunha. She asks him to step away from the store entrance if he knows her. The man agrees and moves aside, allowing her to unload the packages. Yunha thanks him and asks if he can check the items and sign the receipt now. The man agrees, and she hands over the documents. He signs them and returns them, watching Yunha return to her Pegasus. The man calls the manager and confesses he's not familiar with the written language of that world, asking how to confirm the items on the order. The manager says she'll talk to Yunha about it and asks him to just handle the signature for now. The man asks what items arrived, and the manager replies they are snacks, drinks, and dragon scales. The man is astonished by the item, remembering the manager had said it's hard to get dragon scales, but Yunha managed to. The manager explains that with dragon scales, they won't need to worry about sales for a while, as dwarf academies buy many scales to make jewelry. Curiously, the manager asks the man if there are no dragons in his world. He replies no, as in his world, there's no magic or mythical species. The manager, surprised, comments that the man's world is even more backward than the rural area of her world. The succubus client, still lying on the ground, sighs in frustration. The man observes her, informing the manager that the client has finally opened her eyes. The client sits up, and the man announces he will calculate the bill now that she's awake. The client stares at him and asks what love. The man, startled by the question, asks the manager to call a taxi and send that suspicious client away. A taxi stops in front of the store, and the man helps the succubus client get in. He watches her enter the car, still unconscious. The man hands over the receipt for the medicine and the card to the client, asking her to keep them safe so she doesn't lose them. He watches her depart and wonders if she has been drinking alcohol, as her behavior seems strange. On the phone with the manager, the man comments that he thinks she's under some kind of curse, but now that she's taken the medicine, she should be fine. The manager responds that the client still seems restless. The man bids farewell to the client, wishing her well. She questions him again about what love is. He replies that love is something that even when you think you understand, it remains a mystery. The client wonders what love could be, concluding that it's something she desires but cannot have. She watches the man with a curious gaze. The man stares back at her solemnly. The succubus client stares at the man, questioning the meaning of it all. He backs away, embarrassed, asking her to forget what just happened. He watches the taxi drive away and thinks it was good they met, but he prefers not to see her again. Back at the store, the man sighs in relief, thinking things will be calmer now. Suddenly, someone exits the store. It's Yunha, who asks to let her sister know she'll take back the dragon scales. The man, confused, asks why, and she explains there's an issue with the dragon scales. Inside the store, the man watches the manager and Yunha talk on the phone, noting that the conversation is taking a while. Yunha asks if the problem is serious, and the man recalls when he worked as a waiter in his world, remembering the fights between the manager and the delivery person over spoiled ingredients. As he watches Yunha, the man thinks that even if there are defective products, there's not much a part-time employee can do. She asks him to just watch the supervisors handle the situation and do his job. Yunha approaches the man and asks for his name. He replies that his name is Lee Chan, and she confirms, saying her sister asked to speak with him. The manager appears on the cell phone screen, greeting the man. He calls her boss, and she asks him and Yuna to check the dragon scales together. The man is surprised by the request, asking if he should participate too. The scene shifts to a dark and mysterious place, with Yunha and the man descending a staircase. The man, frightened, asks if that place is really a convenience store. He observes the location, which resembles a dungeon, and questions why the storage room looks like one. Yunha asks the man if it's his first time seeing a storage room like that, and he confirms, impressed. Yunha says he'll get used to it quickly, and mentions she was also impressed at first. She then talks with the manager, saying she has unique taste. The man, listening to the conversation, thinks the manager exaggerates. Yunha complains that the store's decoration is strange, and the manager replies that there should be limits, stating he knows that decoration is very strange. The manager then asks Yunha if she will continue to pick on her. Because of the dirt in the place, Yunha asks the man to stand in a corner. The man observes the location and agrees. Yunha walks away while the man begins talking to the manager and warns that he is in the storage room at her request, but asks if there is anything he can do. The manager, pensive, replies that he can only do what she says for now, as she has a plan in mind. Suddenly, the lights come on, and a purple slime appears throughout the room. The man, scared, watches the slime approach. Scared of the purple slime, the man wonders if it isn't too dangerous and what that thing is. Yunha explains that it's like a buildup of contaminated magical power, like pus, that occurs when the dragon scale purification process isn't done correctly. He points to a huge dragon scale and asks if that thing that looks like a turtle shell is a dragon scale. She confirms, and Yunha explains she heard that the scales from the dragons that moved inland were being neglected, so she brought them there hastily. She adds that because it was rushed, she couldn't trust the work to a proper company. And this happened. Yunha reassures him, saying the situation isn't so serious yet, and that if they remove the pus around it, they can still use the scale. The problem, she says, is that it's already past midnight, and the company was closed. The clock shows 3:12 a.m. The manager then says she needs the man's help. The man, surprised and confused, stares at the cell phone. The manager then asks him if he could touch the pus. The man, shocked by the request, doesn't understand. Yunha takes some of the pus and offers it to the man, saying he just has to touch it and that it's not dangerous. He hesitates, saying he trusts her, but regardless of what it is, it's still disgusting to touch, wondering what would happen if he got sick. The manager then proposes a deal. She will give 100,000 won to the man if he touches the pus. The man agrees immediately, surprising the manager with his simplicity. He touches the slime with his closed hand, hesitant. Intrigued, he wonders if it's alive, as it moves when he touches it. The manager explains it's just a mass of magic power, but it seems to be avoiding the man. Yunha asks him to ignore it and touch the slime. The man takes a deep breath and touches the slime with an open hand. A bright, multicolored light emanates from the slime, transforming it into a translucent blue crystal. The man watches, fascinated, as the light fades. Equally surprised, Yunha observes the crystal and asks what it is. The man picks up the crystal and admires its beauty, questioning what just happened. Yunha, excited, celebrates, saying it worked just as the manager had said. Yunha, excited, shows the crystal to the manager and says it has purified as she predicted. The manager, however, warns it's too early to celebrate and asks the man to place the magic wand on the crystal. The man places the wand on the crystal and informs the manager there was no reaction. She confirms this is because there's no contaminated magic power to be detected, indicating the purification process worked correctly. Satisfied, the manager thinks her prediction was correct. She looks at the man and concludes he seems to have an anti-magic constitution. Confused, he asks what that means. The manager explains it means, simplifying, that his body is immune to magic. She turns to the man and asks if he remembers when they tested his body earlier. He confirms he does. The manager then asks if he remembers the curse detector's reaction, and he replies, it made a loud noise. The manager explains there are only two possibilities for this. Either there's absolutely no magic power, or, before she can finish, the chapter ends, leaving suspense in the air. The manager, smiling, explains the detector didn't work because of the man's magic resistance. She says she had thought about this possibility, which is why she asked him to observe the dragon scales with Yunha. She then says she'll explain more details after Yunha leaves, as it's a bit difficult to talk about it now. The man agrees, pondering what she's talking about, not understanding what having a rainbow reflex magic constitution means. He thinks it's not like he's the protagonist of a drama who just discovered a secret about his birth. At that moment, Yuna pushes him against the wall. Startled, the man wonders what's happening. Yuna approaches him and, in a serious tone, asks him to listen because she needs to ask a favor. The man agrees, asking what it is. Yunha, staring at him intently, asks him to help her purify the dragon scales, saying it's a very important favor to her. Startled, the man wonders what's happening. Yunha approaches him and asks him to listen because she has a favor to ask. The man, nervous, asks what it is. Yunha asks him to help her purify the dragon scales. The man, surprised, wonders if she's serious because he doesn't know how to do that. Yunha encourages him, saying she believes he can do it. The man becomes even more confused and asks how he can do that. The manager catches his attention and he graciously asks her help. The man notices the goo being sucked into the hole and sees the bright multicolored light return. The light envelops him completely and then disappears. Yunha scans the area looking for him, clutching the dragon scale which now shines intensely. The light dissipates, revealing the fully purified scale. The man stands up, dazed, thinking about how chaotic that experience was, especially for his first day at work. Yunha, lying nearby after pulling him out, asks if he's okay. Still confused, he replies he's fine and asks if she's hurt. Yunha assures him she's fine and thanks him for not hitting his head. She then asks if he'd like to check the dragon scales. Surprised by the experience, he agrees to examine the scales. He takes out the curse detector and approaches the purified scale. The detector beeps, but doesn't glow. The man comments to Yunha that there was no reaction, just like with the previous stone. Yunha celebrates, saying it was a success. She thanks him, noting he prevented a loss of millions of won. Back at the shop, the manager thanks him for his work and informs him she's already contacted his sister to report the job well done. Yunha confirms there won't be any more delivery issues for the next few days. The man is surprised, thinking deliveries were daily. Yunha explains that deliveries related to magical creatures are a bit more complicated and time-consuming. She bids farewell to the man, who calls her Seo Yunha, as instructed to address her informally since she mentioned he's a year younger than her. The manager agrees, noting he seems quite young and asks him to call her Nuna. The man, feeling awkward, agrees to try. Yunha bids farewell and leaves. He watches her leave and is astonished to realize it's already morning, returning to work and attending to another customer who urges him to hurry as they need to catch their bus quickly. The protagonist announces the total, 9,801. The customer hurriedly tells him to keep the change and rushes out. The protagonist resumes attending to the huge queue. Back at the shop, the man checks the clock showing 7 in the morning and thinks he's dead tired, as it had been a while since he stayed up all night and he was very sleepy. The manager sends a message asking if he's not sleepy. The man realizes it's from the manager. Now in the morning, back at the shop, the manager thanks the man for all his hard work in purifying and promises to deliver his payment once she gets to work. The man thanks her while the manager wonders if he's really not sleepy after staying up all night. At that moment, he hears the sound of another customer entering the shop, but there's no one there. He thinks he somehow imagined the customer, then turns back to talk to the manager, who suggests he should start sleeping better and that she can brew a potion to help him. But he questions if she really knows how to do that. She says she does, as she is a rather capable mage. At that moment, someone with a child's voice calls him Sir. The customer was small, so the man put his body forward and managed to see the customer, who, while responding with a hesitant, "Hello," the client responds that Mother's Day is coming up and she wants to give her mother a present because she learned in kindergarten that there is a day called Mother's Day. She explains that her mother always buys her a present on Children's Day, and she really wants to give her mother a present this time. The man listens to the story attentively and says he understands. He then suggests that she make an origami, as it doesn't require scissors. The client replies that she can't because her hands are the way they are. She shows her hands to the man, who is startled to see her sharp claws. Startled by the client's claws, the man imagines that she could tear other things if she put strength into her hands, and that with those hands it would be difficult to make origami. He thinks that even if he offered to pay for the scissors, the client probably wouldn't accept, as she seems determined, and that the gift seems to be a surprise. The man then decides to offer the scissors on loan to the client. Then, the man hands the colored paper and scissors to the client and suggests that she try gluing the paper. The client thanks him, while the man watches, thoughtful, and wonders if the situation is going too far for a child. He thinks there is no need to go to this point and that the manager will be there soon, but he doesn't know what to say to her. The client calls him and asks him to wait a moment. As she continues to make her gift, the client takes out a chocolate bar and asks the man how much it costs. He replies that it costs 2,001 and asks if she is going to buy it. She confirms that she is, and the man asks her to come to the register so he can ring up the purchase. The man takes the money and hands the chocolate to the client, saying she can eat it now. The client takes the chocolate and examines it carefully. The man, not understanding, watches her back. The client then offers the chocolate to him, saying that he should eat the bigger piece since he is bigger than her. The man declines, saying that it is her snack, but she insists, arguing that he is bigger and that her mother says her teeth will rot if she eats too much chocolate. The man thinks about his own teeth and decides to share the chocolate with the client. They sit at the table and start eating. The manager enters the store, greeting the man with a "Good morning." He is startled, and the manager says he must be sleepy since he worked all night. The manager asks the man who the girl is, and he explains that there was no time to switch shifts and that he ended up lending the store's scissors to the client. The manager understands the situation while the man apologizes, saying that the client didn't have enough money to buy the scissors. The manager, with a thoughtful look, says she thought it would be quick, but it ended up taking longer than expected. The manager reassures the man, saying that everything is fine and that she understands the situation. She observes the client and comments that she doesn't seem very shy. The man agrees that usually children of that age are shy, but the manager explains that that child is of a special species, a dragon. The client, sitting at one of the store's tables, continues to make her gift. The manager explains that she is a pure-blood dragon, and that dragons go through a 3-year growth period in an egg before hatching. She continues explaining that during this growth period, something develops along with their physical functions. The horn, an organ to detect magical power. The manager explains that the horn is not a problem for adult dragons, but young dragons suffer a lot from it, as they can see the magical power of others as colors through the horn, but still can't control it well. She explains that for this reason, there are cases where magic is detected unconsciously, and the young dragon has no experience in distinguishing people by colors. The man is alarmed to realize that if she is not careful, the young dragon might be in danger. The manager explains that it is important to know how to judge whether someone is good or bad, and that this is something learned through one's own life experiences. The man then understood the danger, as the young dragons did not yet have this life experience. The manager concludes that just because someone looks good, it doesn't mean they are a good person. The manager says she understands the situation. She comments that the dragon client doesn't seem very shy, and the man agrees. But the manager explains that pure-blood dragons are usually brought up with more rigor, especially in this aspect. The dragon client approaches the counter, happy, and announces that she finished her gift. The manager praises the client's work, saying she did very well. Startled, The little girl quickly hides behind the man. The man is impressed with the client's skill, while she hides, frightened, with her big golden eyes. The man observes the client, thoughtful, and wonders if this will work since during the day. He wonders if it will work to cover her horns this way. The manager, confident, replies that it will work. The manager, looking at the dragon client, says that the man needs to go home because he worked all night and needs to sleep. She asks the client what she thinks about it. Come back later in the morning to pick up the present. The customer, thoughtful, wonders if she can do that. The manager replies that of course she can, that she is welcome at any time, and invites the customer to visit them always. The customer thanks the man, and the manager completes, calling herself Madam. The manager smiles and waves to the customer, saying she could call her sister, while the man watches the scene, astonished. The customer responds, confused, thanking the sister. The man, embarrassed, agrees, and thought that he would not discuss age with her now. The dragon customer leaves the store and the manager watches her, thoughtful. The manager says that since the dragon customer is gone, he can leave too as he worked all night and needs to rest. She then locks the store door and wonders if she can start preparing to send the man back home. The manager turns to the man and asks him to open a cabinet. He asks which one, and she replies, the one in front. The man opens the doors and sees a glowing globe. She explains that it is a magical item called a teleportation machine, used to move the store to various places. The man is impressed, thinking it seems like magic, but also advanced science from the future. The manager says she made the machine herself, and that it is an exclusive teleportation machine for the store. She warns the man not to touch it carelessly, as she has designated the areas where the store can be operated, and if he touches it incorrectly, the machine will take them to a new location. The manager continues explaining that if the store is teleported to another area, all the products on display will also change. The man promises to be careful. The manager then says the machine is easy to use. Just type the address of his home in the displayed window. The man, confused, asks if it's there, in that window. The manager replies yes and explains that she usually does the teleportation, but if she does it, they might not be teleported to the man's world. The man is surprised and asks how that's possible since she herself built the machine. The manager explains that for the teleportation magic to work, clear information about the destination and a strong will to go there are needed. She says that if the person hasn't been to the place or doesn't want to go there, the teleportation won't happen. The man, surprised, asks if the machine can take him anywhere. The machine emits a sound and the message, "The information was not entered correctly. Please enter the correct address." The manager says that since she doesn't know anything about the man's world, it will be useless if she tries to teleport, and asks him to do it, as he knows his world better. The man hesitates, remembering that the manager had said the machine was magical. He questions if she is saying that it is also magic. The manager confirms, and the man argues that while purifying the dragon's scales, she had said that magic didn't affect his body. He believes that teleportation won't work even if he tries. The manager reassures him, asking him to trust her and try. She guarantees that it will definitely work. The man, trusting the manager, agrees to try and thinks she is the kind of person who would make him do strange things. He wonders if he just needs to type his home's address. The manager confirms and says he needs to desperately wish to go home. The man thinks about his desire to go home, even though it's a cruel world where he was betrayed by the company he worked for. He remembers happy moments from his childhood, playing with his friends in a playground. He thinks about the irony of his world. The manager calls him and asks him to go outside and check if the teleportation worked. The man asks if it worked. The manager replies she is not sure, which is why she is asking him to go check. The man leaves the store and finds himself in his neighborhood. He is delighted to see that he is really back in his neighborhood and is impressed to have been teleported to another world in just a few seconds. Back in the store, he thinks that this made one thing clear. The manager questions. The manager explains that the man's physical constitution can be controlled according to his will. She asks what he was thinking while purifying the dragon scale. The man replies that he thought it would be good if the scale was purified. The manager explains that if the magic didn't affect the man's physical constitution, the magic of the scale would probably have been destroyed and could no longer be used. However, he managed to purify it successfully. She believes this happened because the man's thought of purifying it was reflected in his physical constitution. The man wonders if she made him do that based only on her hypothesis. The manager confirms, saying that otherwise, the scale would have turned into a useless product. The manager concludes that it is possible to control his physical constitution according to his will, and believes this is related to the fact that he ended up in her store. She then asks if he has any more questions, and he replies no. The manager hands the payment to the man, saying he can take the money and go home to work for now. The man takes the envelope with the payment and thanks. Back in his world, the man observes his apartment. Back in his apartment, the man thinks about his small and cramped studio. He realizes that he has indeed returned to the place where he used to live and thinks that he should go to work at night, setting an alarm. He remembers the sleep potion that the manager gave him. The manager thinks he should drink the potion to sleep immediately. The man thinks that he didn't believe she would actually make the potion for him, but wonders if it will work. He sets the alarm for the night, thinking that since the manager made the potion herself, it must work. He then drinks the potion, thinking that he won't continue sleeping if he doesn't hear the alarm. The man falls asleep deeply. The alarm goes off, but he keeps sleeping. He is startled when he wakes up and tries to turn off the alarm, but it doesn't stop ringing. The man checks the time on his cell phone, concluding that the potion really works. Walking in his neighborhood, the man stretches and comments that he slept very well thanks to the sleep potion. However, he wonders if it is true that he went to another world, since, as there is material evidence, it must not have been a dream. He walks towards the convenience store, wondering if the store will be in the same place as yesterday. Standing in front of the store, he is surprised to see it there, and thinks that, since there is a convenience store there, it certainly wasn't a dream. He enters the store, still thoughtful, and wonders if he is the only one who can see it. Inside the store, he observes the customer suggesting to the manager that she keep the empty bottles because if they collect 100 bottles, the price of soju will be exactly 2,001. The manager stares at him with a blank expression. An elf customer enters the store, exclaiming that he will drink everything at once in 1 second. The man thinks that if he could drink there would be no more problems, but the manager interrupts him, telling the elf customer that she had already talked about this before and that drinking in the convenience store is illegal. The elf, indignant, questions why this is illegal, since the store sells alcoholic beverages. The manager tries to explain, but the elf interrupts her again, stating that she is very strange. The man interrupts and begins to explain that by law, convenience stores are recognized as restaurants, and therefore, it is not allowed to drink there. She adds that it is also not allowed to drink outside the store and asks him to pay for the drink and drink it at home. The manager asks the man when he arrived, and he replies that it was at that moment. The manager is startled by the scream that the elf gives, interrupting her, asking who he thinks he is to interrupt her so suddenly. The man replies that he is an employee of the store, and the elf questions him, indignant, asking how he dares respond to the customer being just an employee. The elf gets furious, accusing the man of looking down on him because he is an elf. The man, perplexed, asks when he looked down on him. The elf insists that he is being looked down on for having his request denied, and that they are both looking down on him for being an elf, just because they are humans. The man and the manager try to explain, swearing they didn't do that, but the elf doesn't believe it, accusing them of looking down on him. He throws himself on the floor, crying and screaming that he is very sad and that he was looked down on. The man, scared, asks him to get up, as it is dangerous to get hurt on the floor. The elf accuses him of being looked down on by insignificant human beings just because he is old. The man asks him to get up once again, as he could get hurt if he falls on top of the products on display. The elf continues to cry on the floor, and the manager, impatient, presses the emergency button on the cash register. The elf, irritated, asks the man if he has now decided to give him orders, while the same says that he was only talking about the danger of getting hurt on the floor. A siren sounds and a police car stops in front of the store. 2 police officers, a werewolf and an elf. The werewolf takes the elf to the car, while the elf police officer takes the details of the incident, and she replies that the elf did not pay for the drink, accused them of species discrimination, and also of disturbing the business. The elf police officer confirms with the manager what she describes. The elf police officer understands the story of the elf customer and adds that she asks to see the security camera recordings. The manager agrees and asks if she needs help operating the cameras, but the police officer declines, saying she will do it herself and will be right back. The elf leaves to check the recordings, and the man thinks that the elves of that world are different from those he knew. The manager asks the man what kind of image the elves have in his world, and he replies that they have a noble and beautiful image. He adds that he always thought elves were very noble, but after witnessing that, the manager laughs and says that they were that species before the war. An image from the past shows a plane flying over a futuristic city. The manager explains that decades ago, there was a great scientific development in that world, and many scientific artifacts were developed to make life more convenient for all species. She adds that humans were responsible for making that progress possible. A scene from the past shows a meeting between various species, including orcs, demons, and minotaurs. The manager explains that the other species, who lived comfortably thanks to science and technology, accepted it positively. Development, but to have a more comfortable life, they started to invade rural areas, destroying nature with their constructions and factories. Despite this, everyone was satisfied, as their lives became much more comfortable. However, one species completely opposed this change. The elves. An elf cries, lamenting the destruction of nature. The manager explains that, in the end, the war began. The man, shocked, asks if there was a war because of scientific technologies. The manager confirms, explaining that the elves are a species that loves nature and couldn't bear to see it being destroyed by scientific development. Since the elves destroyed most of the buildings and factories, the other species couldn't take it anymore and had to choose a side, humans or elves, whether they wanted to follow development or not. The girl wonders what decision the elves would have made back then, between joining the humans or keeping the situation as it was. She narrates that, in the war between the different species, the elves were numerous, even when fighting alongside all the other species. Due to the large number of elves, the war lasted for a long time. She explains how, despite all the species reconciling after the war, the negative impact on humans and elves was enormous, to the point where it's hard to find them in everyday life. The man listens to the story attentively. The girl continues her narrative, explaining how the elves suffered discrimination and oppression after the war, though this has decreased recently. She asks the boy if he remembers the elf police officer who checked the security camera footage and comments that she probably worked very hard to get that job. She mentions that the elf police officer even dyed her blonde hair black. The girl then asks the boy to treat all elf customers well if any appear in the store. The boy, with a confused expression, asks if he really needs to treat even the elf customer from before well. The girl scolds him, saying he shouldn't feel obligated to treat well customers who scream or curse. She advises him to expel them from the store if they behave badly, and not to suffer unnecessarily. The boy says he understands. The elf police officer then yawns and says that the manager should get back to work since the investigation was almost over. The girl agrees and says she should also leave after the police officer leaves. The man remembers the manager's story about the war between humans and elves, and asks what happened to the elves after the war. The manager explains that after the war ended, the surviving elves suffered a lot of discrimination and lived under tremendous oppression, though this has significantly decreased recently. She asks if he remembers the elf police officer who checked the security cameras, and the man confirms. The manager comments that she probably worked very hard to get that job, to the point of dyeing her black hair blonde. She asks the man to treat any elf customers well. The man questions if this includes the elf customer from earlier. The manager, irritated, responds no, that he is not obligated to treat well customers like that, and instructs him to expel them from the store if they scream or curse. She concludes by telling him not to suffer for nothing. The elf police officer returns and says the manager can leave work now. The manager yawns and says she will leave as soon as the police leave. In front of him, a dog man dressed in a suit and tie yells at the man, asking if he's not going to work and why he doesn't get up immediately. The man, still nervous, gets up and asks what he's looking for. The dog man asks where the toothpaste is, and the man replies that it's in the same place as the toothbrush he bought yesterday. The dog man, irritated, yells at the man, complaining that he can't understand when he talks like that, and asks if he's going to keep working like that. The man asks him to calm down and explain correctly and sincerely. The man, talking to himself, says, "Manager, a customer is bullying me." The man then takes the dog man to the toothpaste section and tells him to choose one. The dog man asks which toothpaste is good, and the man replies that he doesn't know. The dog man scolds him, saying he works there and doesn't even know that. The man defends himself, saying that he is the customer and that it's his responsibility to choose and buy, and that he doesn't need to act like that. The dog man, looking at the man, says it seems like he has a lot of requests to make, and the man thinks he's not wrong. The dog man then grabs a toothpaste on sale, buy two, pay for one, and the man asks what he thinks of that toothpaste. The dog man replies that he doesn't need two, but the man says that since one of them is free, wouldn't it be beneficial for him to buy it? The dog man thinks if one of them is free, Wouldn't it be advantageous for him to buy it? He looks at the toothpaste box and says he will pay now. The man informs him that it's 3,200 won and asks if he wants a bag. The dog man confirms and then grabs a pack of cigarettes and says he'll take that too. The man calculates the total purchase value, and the dog man points to a box of gum on sale. Buy 2, pay for 1. The man says that 1 is also on sale, but the dog man replies that he doesn't need 2 and that he can keep 1. The man, confused, asks if he's sure. The dog man confirms, and the man tries to refuse, saying he can't do that because he bought it, but the dog man says it's none of his business and that he won't ask for money later, so he should just take it. The dog man leaves the store, and the man wonders if that Chihuahua customer isn't a regular customer, as it seems he gives something every time he's there. Watching the dog man walk away, the man thinks that seeing him come there today too, it seems like his work is nearby. He thinks, worried, if he will be coming there always while he is working. At that moment, someone enters the store. He looks towards the door, hearing a hello. The man is startled by the arrival of the succubus customer, the same one who had been in the store the day before. She asks if he sells resignation letters. In the store, the manager wonders if the succubus customer has returned. The man confirms, saying she probably won't act like she did the previous day. The manager asks how the customer's condition is, and he replies that he thinks she drank a little, but that she's more docile than the day before. The manager asks him to check her condition with the curse detector, and if the result is good, to leave her alone. She warns that she'll get in touch again if the result is strange after the verification. The man agrees and thinks about how to act, because he's a bit scared that she'll act like a ghost again. He wonders if he should just stand still, but the manager encourages him, reminding him of the bonus he received the previous day and saying that she'll also give him money that month. The man, excited, thinks he should work diligently to be able to accept the money with confidence. He approaches the customer and calls her. She turns around, and the man remembers the situation from the day before. He explains that he needs to check her if she wants to stay in the store and asks if he can do that. The succubus customer responds that, of course, he can check. She thanks him for accepting her request and hands him the curse detector. The man, awkwardly, asks about what happened the previous day, and she apologizes, saying she feels very sorry about that. The man, thinking about the situation, remembers the rainbow vomit she caused in the store the day before. He begs her not to talk about it anymore. The customer explains that she was out of her mind the previous day because she drank too much magical energy drink at the company where she works, and apologizes again. The man asks what kind of company she works at for that to happen, and she replies that she works at a pharmaceutical company nearby. She explains that she ended up like that while making a love potion. The man, surprised, asks if potions aren't made by mages. She responds that in the love industry, succubi are the ones most involved because the succubus species is very talented at captivating and fascinating other people. She adds that they are the species that is always close to love, so most of the time they work at pharmaceutical companies that produce love-related medicines or work as psychiatrists to counsel people who are having love problems. She says she is also one of them, and as her work isn't going well, what happened the day before happened, and she apologizes once again. The man thinks that the succubi in that world are very healthy, but that something is strange. The succubus customer then asks if he is thinking about resigning. The man is surprised by the question, and says he thinks the work she is doing is suitable for her and questions why she is looking for a resignation letter. The customer, embarrassed, confesses that, as she has never dated before, she doesn't know what love is. The man, shocked, is speechless. The customer cries, explaining that she focused on her studies and never had any romance in her life. She says she graduated as a student with a gloomy life and worked hard at her first job. But since she doesn't know what love is, her work isn't going well. She comments that even when she asks about love to her superiors and colleagues, they say different things, so she no longer knows whom to believe. She cries, saying she feels that job isn't compatible with her, and that was why she was looking for a resignation letter. The man says she must be very worried about that. The customer sobs, confirming her worry, and says she ended up hearing his personal matters too. The man asks her to cheer up, saying that everyone goes through tough times when they start working for the first time. The customer stares at him, thoughtful, while the man averts his gaze. The succubus says it was actually because of what the man said to her the previous day. He asks what she means, and she responds that he said that to her while she was in the taxi the previous day. The man recalls and wonders what he said. The customer stares at him and says he said, "Something that I want but can't have." The man remembers the phrase he said the previous day without much thought, and the customer says she was shocked after hearing that. She explains that everyone says love is easy, pleasant, and joyful, or that it is problematic and painful, but he was the only one who responded differently. The man is speechless. The customer continues, saying the phrase stuck in her mind because it was something new. She then questions him, asking him to explain the meaning of the phrase and what he thinks about love. The girl insistently asks the man to answer her question, and he ends up remembering that he saw the same expression in her eyes the previous day. Embarrassed, he apologizes, confessing his inexperience in love and asking her not to take it the wrong way. The girl, confused, questions the reason for his words. He reveals that he has never had a romantic relationship before. Surprised, the girl reacts with astonishment, leading the boy to reveal that his face seems boring. Then, she observes him in silence for a moment, which leaves him disconcerted, and he begs her not to misunderstand the situation. A customer looked at the man, confused. He responds that it's because her face looks boring. The customer stares at him, thoughtful. In an awkward moment, the two remain silent. The man looks away while the succubus tilts her head. Regretting, he ends up asking her to stop trying to understand that and go home. While writing in her notebook, the manager says that everything is ready. She turns to the succubus customer and informs her that she will explain everything before they start, and that what she shares will not be disclosed to anyone else. The manager explains that she will use the information only as a reference, and that the customer can answer her questions comfortably. The man wonders why he should do that, and thinks that he can't say anything about it, as he has been single for 29 years and is sure he won't be of any help to that customer. He thinks that, as expected, he should change the subject. The man approaches the customer and suggests that instead of interviewing other people, she should think about what it would be like to enter a relationship. The customer wonders if he is talking about her, and he confirms, saying that it is embarrassing to say this, but that the people around her have probably already tried to find someone for her. He asks if she has never been in this situation, and she confirms, saying that she has been, but avoided all attempts because she was scared. He remembers when he started working at his first company and studied a lot about love. He recalls that all the books and all the people he asked said that love is something great, but that it is not something visible. He thinks that since each person has different experiences, he ended up having that thought. The succubus questions love and its expectations. She reflects on how she avoided love at all costs out of fear. The character with dark hair finds the situation curious, since the character is a succubus. The man quickly corrects himself, stating that it is not strange to be afraid of love. He continues, saying that everyone fears the unknown, especially humans who have difficulty dealing with emotions. He concludes that love is the most complex emotion, and that it is not easy to start loving. He suggests that the horned character take love less seriously since her job involves that feeling. The horned character seems confused. The protagonist reminds her that she had said that love is something good. He reveals that he disagrees with the statement and, when questioned, justifies his opinion with the experience of a friend who got married. He describes how the friend praised his partner before the wedding, but regretted it afterward, because they started to have fights as they noticed flaws in each other. The dark-haired character observes that the friend was different from his wife, and that the relationship seemed perfect before the wedding. The man then suggests that she try to think of love in a lighter way. She asks, lightly? He explains that she had said that love is something great, and he confesses that, to be honest, he does not agree with that. She, surprised, asks why. The man explains that he felt that way after seeing his friend, who had gotten married, regret it. He tells that when his friend was dating, he used to brag a lot about his partner, saying that they were soulmates destined to be together forever. But after they got married and started living together, they began to see the flaws in each other that they hadn't noticed before. The man continues, saying that because of the constant fights, his friend ended up regretting getting married. The customer comments that the man's friend was very different from his partner, and the man agrees, recalling that his friend used to say that he liked everything about her when they were dating. The succubus customer observes the conversation, thoughtful. The protagonist continues, noting that love seems to change based on the situation, and that although good things generally do not change, love does. The horned character appears confused. The man explains that love changes because it is something made by people with varied emotions, and suggests that she try to love at least once. She admits never having dated, but mentions that she makes love potions, and that it would be easier to understand love if he had no experience with relationships. The horned character gets irritated with the man's speech and scolds him for talking about being single since birth. The man apologizes and asks if she is ready to work, noting that it is time for the first bus to arrive. The customer thanks the man for listening to her, saying that it helped her a lot. The man replies that it was nothing, and that he is happy to have helped. He thinks that both types of love are painful and difficult to understand, as both left wounds and scars, to the point of closing the door to their hearts. He thinks that, in his eyes, both types of love are selfish and one-sided, as love is not made by just one person. He believes that a relationship established by the exchange of feelings between two people can only be called love. He advises the customer to be careful with these types of love and to enter a comfortable relationship. The customer, thoughtful, writes down his words and wonders if she will be able to do that. Thinking. The protagonist encourages the horned character, stating that she will be able to love because she is very attractive and will not have problems receiving confessions. The character appears hesitant, finding the statement somewhat rude. The man reassures her, saying that she can stop if things get complicated. He apologizes for talking so much about relationships, even though he has never dated. The horned character is surprised by the apology. He repeats that he has never dated. The man who makes love potions and that this helps him understand people. Once again, the character gets annoyed with the comments about the guy's singleness. The guy apologizes again and reminds her that she needs to work, as the bus will arrive soon. The character thanks him for the conversation, and he responds that he is glad to have helped. The guy hands something to the character, who asks why. He explains that it will be easier for her at work if she takes that with her, and believes it will work out. The character, confused, thanks him, while the guy says goodbye. The man encourages her, saying that she will definitely succeed because she is a very attractive person. The succubus customer blushes, embarrassed, and the man apologizes, saying he thinks it was rude to say that. He corrects himself, stating that there must be many men who would not refuse a confession from her. He encourages her to be confident and try, saying that if it gets difficult, she can simply stop. The man covers his face with his hands, embarrassed, and apologizes for talking too much, even though he has never dated. The succubus customer smiles, saying it's okay because she also has never dated anyone but is making love potions. The man gets excited, saying it's easier to understand someone who has also never dated, and comments that he is happy to learn about someone who has been single since birth.